If we put health considerations aside for a moment, we might just say that Pop-Tarts are the most perfect grab-and-go style American breakfast dish possible. The way that crispy, frosted outer shell meshes with the delicious, warm filling taste is simply blissful. Now, that's my take, but let's just say that not everyone would agree. In fact, a quick search will reveal that the food is somewhat controversial. Some internet users on Reddit debate why the treat is, quote, so disgusting, while newscasters have reported on it being outright banned in several countries. So what's the story here? How did one of America's most famous breakfast dishes go from mainstream to outright forbidden? And who invented this treat anyways? So stay tuned to find out, as today we uncover the history of Pop-Tarts. I'm your host, Ryan Socash, and you're watching Eats History. In 1960, breakfast was changing. As families traded traditional home food for grab-and-go style options, corporations took note and encouraged the transformation. Enter Post Consumer Brands, a cereal manufacturer from Lakeville, Minnesota, established in 1895 by Charles William Post. Born on October the 26th, 1854, in Springfield, Illinois, the adopted home of President Lincoln, Post built a cereal empire that, by the turn of the century, invented products such as corn flakes or grape nuts. But there were also accusations that he went mad with his empire-building ambitions. Some have even accused him of stealing recipes from Kellogg's. And the fact that he had documented mental breakdowns from the stress of his work didn't help with that reputation. Remember, issues surrounding self-wellness were highly taboo back then. All the same, by 1913, the man had grown so unwell that he canceled all of his public appearances and in early March of 1914 was rushed via a nonstop train from California to Mayo Clinic in Minnesota for urgent care. Although the medical staff helped him enough to return him home to Santa Barbara, California, where it seemed he might be okay for a time, his issues persisted, and he passed away on May the 9th, 1914, of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Post was only 59 years old and left his empire and fortune to his 27-year-old daughter. Just to emphasize the scale of what this 27-year-old was now responsible for, let me present you an almost unbelievable fact. According to some sources, this was one of the most significant wealth transfers of inheritance in the 20th century. Post was a pillar of the American elite, and decades after his death, a World War II Liberty ship, the SSCW Post, would be named in his honor. Hence, after his passing, Post's daughter Marjorie took on her new role as the wealthiest woman in the United States, using the vast fortune to collect art and divide her time between an estate in Washington, D.C. and a grand mansion in Mar-a-Lago. She was also the director of the company from 1914. During her reign, she did a fantastic job expanding the enterprise to acquire noble companies such as Hellmann's Mayonnaise, Jell-O, Baker's Chocolate, Maxwell House, and many others. Moreover, upon taking a yacht voyage, she learned about new and innovative developments in food preservation, techniques which she would promptly implement into her products. Considering the aggressive expansion, the company was renamed General Food Corporation. Marjorie ultimately resigned as director in 1959 to pursue a life of philanthropy, family, and leisure until she passed away in her Hillwood estate on September the 12th, 1973. She was laid to rest on the grounds of her estate, which was passed down to her children, one of whom you may recall as the breathtaking actress Dina Merrill. With a deep history of breakfast foods, groundbreaking preservation techniques, and an almost endless catalog of various food brands, the General Food Corporation set out to dominate the changing American breakfast table. As the social tide of the 1960s encouraged more and more mothers to trade in their aprons for corporate jobs, the kids still needed to eat. And then it dawned on them. Why not just implement a dehydration technique originally invented for dog food products, creating a long-lasting pastry that anyone could just warm up in the toaster? This was the moment Pop-Tarts was born. Originally named Toast-'em Pop-Ups, sometimes called Country Squares, it debuted for the nation in 1964. Very few people realized that the foil wrapping preservation system was the same for both the food they were feeding their dog and their kids, yet their main competitor, Kellogg's, did take note of this fact and promptly created their own version of the system in a dish called fruit scones. And it would turn out to be a good thing for them, because General Foods' sales of Country Squares were abysmal, and hence sold off to the Scholzer and Birch Biscuit Company, which continues to produce them to this very day under the name Toast and Pop-Up. Anyhow, Kellogg's was onto something when it swooped in and embraced this new concept. It was also a very ironic twist of fate, considering the earlier accusations that Post had pulled a Steve Jobs on him when visiting the Kellogg's factory. But that's not where the irony ends. Kellogg's actually hired a guy named William Post to take on the production line of Pop-Tarts, although William was not related to the actual Post family. William Post later described the experience as, quote, having to break every rule in the book to develop up to 10,000 samples of Pop-Tarts in his laboratory by hand. His team refined the recipe by bringing samples home for their children to test almost daily. Ultimately, the treat was renamed Pop-Tarts after perfecting the recipe, and the first batch was released in grocery stores in 1964, with the very first stores carrying the products based in Cleveland, Ohio. And those stores reported that Pop-Tarts instantly sold out. After his success, William Post moved to Illinois and ascended various corporate ladders, populating well-known brands like Nutri-Grain and Rice Krispie Treats. In retirement, he occasionally lectured aspiring students, saying, quote, "If you want to be noticed, always do more than is expected." Then he'd hand out free samples of his so-called ultimate supply of Pop-Tarts, a stockpile in the back of his car. To top it all off, his vehicle's license plate read Pop-Tart. William Post passed away recently, on February the 10th, 2024, at the age of 96. But it's safe to say that he made his mark on the universe. In the legacy of those who created it, Pop-Tarts have become a fixture of American culture. From Pop-Tarts World in Times Square to the unverified rumor that 2.4 million Pop-Tarts were airdropped in Afghanistan back in 2001. Even comedian Jerry Seinfeld has put together a Netflix film about the creation of Pop-Tarts called Unfrosted. But it hasn't all been positive. In fact, the company has suffered challenges ranging from unexpected lawsuits to being outright banned in some European nations. In 1992, Thomas Nagel filed a lawsuit against Kellogg's after his Pop-Tart became stuck in the toaster and caught fire. Now, anecdotally, I can also say that I remember the same thing happening in my house, but I never really thought much of it. And apparently, I'm not alone, since this was something of a common phenomenon. And then, the issue gained widespread notoriety when columnist Dave Barry wrote a piece about his own Pop-Tart toaster fire situation. Following that, a university in Texas conducted an experiment in 1994 to demonstrate that strawberry Pop-Tarts in particular could produce a flame up to 1.5 feet. These assertions culminated in a broader number of lawsuits. Ultimately, Pop-Tarts implemented a safety label reading, "Due to possible risk of fire, never leave your toaster appliance or microwave unattended," which seems like some very logical, if not obvious advice. But then, in 2001, a woman in New York sued the company for $5 million, claiming, quote, "The strawberry representations are misleading because the product has less strawberries than consumers expect based on labeling." The lawsuit was dismissed in 2022, with the judge commenting, quote, "The word strawberry, combined with a picture of half of a strawberry and a Pop-Tart oozing red filling, does not guarantee that there will be a certain amount of strawberries in the product's filling." There were also a series of recalls over the years, but perhaps the most fascinating trouble the brand faced was an outright ban by the European Union. According to Foodie.com, countries belonging to the EU took steps to ban foods that may raise health concerns from additives. Dyes such as red 40, yellow 5, and yellow 6 were most problematic in the otherwise delicious Pop-Tart, as they're thought to be linked with dangerous conditions, particularly in children. With that in mind, some countries have taken things to the extreme by banning the product entirely, whereas others have added a warning label. However, to be fair, these restrictions apply to many American foods that use chemicals and preservatives excessively. In conclusion, I'd say the story of Pop-Tarts is filled with irony. From the fact that the unstable Charles William Post is alleged to have pulled that Steve Jobs on Kellogg's, only later to have Kellogg's take over the recipe and hire a different guy, coincidentally also named William Post, to bring this breakfast food to prominence in America. Then, a string of European countries banned the product because of chemicals and preservatives, when the whole premise of the Pop-Tart originated from Marjorie Post's brilliant observation of preservation techniques. All the same, I haven't had a Pop-Tart in at least 25 years, so I am excited to taste test one. We're taste testing the s'more flavored Pop-Tarts. They are complete with that famous warning on the back. I will point out to everyone that I am sitting inside of the European Union right now, and that you can get Pop-Tarts. They weren't easy to find. They weren't really easy to obtain, but it is kind of technically possible. So the Pop-Tarts come just as I remember them from when I was a kid, except for I don't think they had s'more flavor yet when I was a kid. Got that nice famous foil packaging that was used to preserve the product. This is a key part of what made it a success. And yeah, pull it out, and it looks exactly as it always did. And the smell, well, that's a peculiar thing, especially now that I understand that preservation techniques applied to dog food were also used in this product. You start to see some similarities. And the smell, albeit sweet, it's a giveaway. Let's taste test. I want to say it's good, but it's a bit gross. Although I like real s'mores, this just isn't my flavor. It looks good, smells a little bit weird. I mean, I guess it tastes okay. Yeah, that's the Pop-Tart episode. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know in the comment section what you'd like to see next. And until next time, I'm Ryan Socash for Eats History. Talking at the same time that I'm eating, so apparently, although I live in Europe, I still have American manners.